Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of the Kansas City Royals. We are at the end of the 2028 regular season. It was a fantastic regular season for the Royals. 103-59 record, best record in the American League, best record in baseball, won the AL Central by 6 games over the White Sox. So the Royals have a first-round bye as we try to repeat as World Series champions here in 2028. Looking at the playoffs in the American League, we've got the Blue Jays and the White Sox who will be facing off for the right to play against us, and the Yankees or the Mariners will be playing against the Red Sox in the division series. The NL, the Padres and the Cardinals have the byes, and you can see San Francisco, the Dodgers, the Pirates, and the Mets are the other teams involved in the playoffs. Looking at the Royals' potential playoff roster, Zach Jacobs is banged up right now with a sore elbow, but only going to impact him for 2 days. Starting catcher MJ Melendez, his knee soreness, which is expected to have a 3-day impact, given that we are just at the start of the best-of-3 series in both the AL and the NL. Obviously, both of those players should be healthy by the time our series begins. The issue is that Sal Frelich, our excellent left fielder, and then Jason Dominguez, who we thought was going to be our starting center fielder, have both had injury-plagued seasons. Dominguez has missed the entire year with a torn PCL. He's about a week away from coming back. Frelich, on the other hand, has been in and out of the lineup all year, but 2 long injuries. Been out with a torn quad since the end of August, and he previously missed about 2 months with another injury. So he only had 283 at-bats for us this year. He was productive, batting .314 with a 134 OPS plus. So we would love to get that bat, that speed, that base running, that work ethic back into the lineup. But he's still a week away, so we are going to have to monitor how both Frelich and Dominguez heal up. If one or both of them is ready, it's hard to imagine that we would put Dominguez onto the playoff roster. His batting profile is probably a bit below average, except for the home run power. Is very good defensively. And like I said, our thought was that he was going to take over as our center fielder this past season, but then when he got hurt at the end of spring training, that just never happened. We've now traded for Brandon Marsh and Kyle Lewis, who have been platooning in center field for us, and we also have the youngster Will Taylor on the active roster right now. Although when we're looking at the playoff roster, just have Junior Marin, the young outfielder, Stephen Paolini, Kyle Lewis, and Brandon Marsh on the roster. So if we get to a point where Frelich or Dominguez is healthy enough to come on, odds are it will be either first baseman Zach DeCenzo or second baseman Jose Barrero, who are headed off of the playoff roster to make room for Frelich or Dominguez. And that's really the only thing that we're going to be monitoring here through the first round of the playoffs. And here in the AL, the White Sox did beat the Blue Jays 2-1, and the Mariners took out the Yankees 2-0. Dodgers swept the Giants. Pirates and Mets still have a deciding game 3 ahead of them. So not an optimal matchup for us. Obviously, Boston got the bye, but Seattle was technically the 3 seed as the division winner. So we're going to be going against the White Sox, who actually were the second best team in the American League, behind only our Royals here in this upcoming divisional series, best of 5. We will have the home field advantage ahead of them. Taking a look as we've simmed through a few days, obviously, to get through those playoff games. Frelich still 3 days away, Dominguez 2 days away. So we're going to have a decision to make as to whether we want to put one or both of them onto the playoff roster. Still have another day or so to decide. It's going to be tough to leave Frelich off the roster. The bummer is that he may miss the first couple games of the series, which would be a bit of a wasted spot. You can see the series does start today. hosting Chicago. So we've got a decision to make. It's only a 5-game series. Losing Frelich for the first 2 games of the series is definitely not an optimal thing. But if we get into obviously there will be at least 3 games in the series, and he's one of the most important players on our team. So either of them would be back. Certainly by the time we go to Chicago, and it looks like Jason Dominguez could actually be back for the second game at home tomorrow. But given that he literally has not played since spring training, I don't think we're going to put him on the team. It's really just a matter of whether we would want to put Frelich on the roster for this series or not. Even though Frelich is going to miss the first 2 games of the series, he's just too important a player to our lineup to not have on the playoff roster. So what we are actually going to do, this is a 5-game series, best of 5. We could have 2 off days in it potentially. We are actually going to go with 12 pitchers. We're going to take Randy Rodriguez, who was kind of the last pitcher on the roster, off. So we're going to go with 12 pitchers, and we are going to go with 14 position players to get Frelich on the roster. The thought is, we've had almost a week of rest at this point since our last regular season game. Pitching staff should be completely refreshed and ready to go. Nobody's worn out at all. And, after 2 games, we get an off day. So 12 pitchers should be plenty. You can see we have moved to a 4-man rotation for the playoffs. Spencer Bauer, last year's AL Cy Young Award winner. Zach Willman, who pitched in the clinching game and got the victory in a brilliant performance last year in the World Series. Game 4, 4th win. Wish I could speak. Caleb Lagerwell, very consistent pitcher for us. And then Trevor Rogers, who is the 2026 AL Cy Young Award winner, back in the rotation, coming off of the injury that cost him all of last year. So we are also going to increase the pitch counts for both Bauer and Rogers to 100, keep them at 90 in the regular season because they're both fragile. But it's time to go with the best we've got, and Bauer and Rogers are certainly among them. So go with a bit short pitching staff of just 12 pitchers here for this series, but that will allow us to hopefully get, in a couple of games, Sal Frelich back into the lineup. And looking at this playoff series, I knew it was going to be a battle, but I don't think I really appreciated how good Chicago was. Although we had the best record in baseball at 103-59, actually had a losing record against Chicago. And you can see, although we were 4th in the AL in runs scored and 2nd in runs against, they were actually better than us in both categories. 2nd in runs scored and 1st in runs against. They just had a little bit of bad luck. They were actually 5 games worse than expected with the best run differential in all of baseball. So they should have been 102-60. We should have actually been 99-63. So it's a little bit of an upset that we actually won the division. Hopefully the home field advantage that we have in the playoffs will make a difference, but I think you could definitely make an argument looking at those statistics there that the 2 best teams in baseball are going to be facing off in this divisional series. It was definitely the 2 best run differentials in all of baseball, with the White Sox number 1 at plus 204 and our Royals number 2 at plus 174. So should be an interesting series. We have Spencer Bauer, 8-9 record with a 3.14 ERA, 220 strikeouts in 169 innings. As I mentioned earlier, he was last year's AL Cy Young Award winner, and he is going to be going up against the 32-year-old Zach Vernasco, who was only 3-8 with 36 saves for the White Sox. So looks like maybe they're doing an opener thing here or something against us. Will be interesting to see how that all plays out. But hopefully the Royals can get off to a big start here in Game 1 of the American League Division Series. And it was not to be. 7-6 victory for the White Sox here, opening the Division Series. Looking at the box score, Peyton Williams had a big game, 2 for 3 with a home run and a double, scored 2 and drove in 3, but just an ugly performance from Bauer. Gave up 7 runs in 2 2/3 innings, so that third inning was just brutal, and we chipped away at them after that, got up to 7-6, but they just blew us out of the water in a real difficult performance for Spencer Bauer. Can see got very clean relief from Jacobs, Bosna, Vernasco, and Roberts after that. Venaro also got knocked around as the opener for them. And then Garrett Crochet came on to get the save. So a disappointing start to the series for our Kansas City Royals, who are down 1-0 here in the Division Series, despite a nice game from Peyton Williams. So we will move on to game number 2. Jason Dominguez now able to come off of the IL. Not going to be bringing him back. We'll have to see how things emerge, whether we win this series and then whether there might be injuries or something that allow us to potentially bring him back up. But right now, Zach Willman, last year's playoff hero, 7-4 record with a 3.68 ERA for the Royals this year. You can see only 149 innings and 33 starts with that 40 stamina. He's a 4 or 5 inning pitcher. We generally like to get 5 out of him, but it doesn't happen every time. Sandy Alcantara on the mound for the White Sox led the American League with 19 wins, 19-5 with a 3.55 ERA. So definitely a tough matchup for us in Kansas City here. Absolutely want to win this second game before we go on the road to Chicago for Game 3. And unfortunately, the White Sox win again. Alcantara with the victory. They win 4-2. Kumar Rocker came in and got the save. So things are not going well for these Royals. Williman, 4 earned runs, 2 earned over 4 innings, and then again, perfect relief. It's our starters are getting knocked around a little bit, and then our bullpen has been lights out. Alcantara did really well, 6 hits over 6 1/3 innings, 2 earned runs. Not much offense from the Royals here, just 7 hits, 3 of them by our number 9 hitter, Ricardo Cabrera. So going to have to get the offense going, but the Royals title defense at this point is certainly on life support. We've got a day off, and then we will be in Chicago, but the Royals are going to need to win 3 in a row to keep the dream of making it back to the World Series alive. So we will sim ahead to Chicago and Game 3. And it's going to be tough for the Royals. I mentioned going in, Chicago was even a better team than I had realized when I looked at them closely with, kind of a similar profile to some of the Royals teams over the past couple years with the best pitching in baseball and also a really good offense. Granted, they were first in runs against and we were second, and they were really only 1 run better than us over the course of the year. So, we were right there, but we're now 9-12 against the White Sox this season, including the playoffs. So if our season is going to continue in the ALCS, we're going to have to get back to 500 against them, winning 3 in a row to get to 12-12. We've got Caleb Lagerwell on the mound, 11-7 this year with a 3.75 ERA, 110 ERA plus, 95 FIP minus. So always feel good when Lagerwell is on the mound. Let's just make sure there's nothing exciting going on there. Doesn't seem that there is. Rusney Contreras on the mound for the White Sox, 13-9 with a 3.37 ERA, 121 ERA plus, 89 FIP minus. So two excellent pitchers going at it. Chicago has home field advantage. Can the Royals stop the bleeding here and stabilize this series, or will it all be over? And the Royals do come back, break through for their first win. Kyle Lewis with a homer for us, 8-2 victory. Lagerwell just 1 run given up in 5 1/3. Bosma and Goebel on in relief. Got to Contreras for 10 hits in 5 earned runs over 3 2/3, and then also scored against Alvarado. So a relatively easy game for the Royals, fortunately. As I mentioned, Kyle Lewis with a home run. A couple of ribbies from both Kyle Lewis and Nikki Lopez. Bobby Witt Jr. and Peyton Williams scored a couple runs apiece. So the season is still alive for the Royals as we head into the final game of the series. I know, or hopefully not the final game of the series, but the potential final game of the series. I note that Frelich did not play, so we are going to go take a look at what's going on with these lineups here. Asked Byron Nichols to update things, and Frelich is now back in the lineup. We got the win without him, but I should have checked that before we did that, before we played that game. But obviously it didn't matter because he would have he was out for the first 2 games of the series recovering from that injury. But it would have stunk to have not played him in Game 3 and lost. But we did get by that game. Trevor Rogers, 2026 AL Cy Young Award winner, highest paid player on our team. He's fragile now after missing all of last year with an injury, but still made an all-star team this year as a part-time starter, part-time reliever for us. 7-1 record, 2.99 ERA with 109 strikeouts over 93 1/3 innings. 77 FIP minus on the year. So he's not as good as he was in that Cy Young Award 2026 season before the injury, but still a starter that we're very happy to have going out there in Game 4. He's going to be going up against the 34-year-old Cody Poteet, who was 6-0 in 10 starts for the White Sox this year with a 2.12 ERA. So excellent season from Poteet in the time that he spent there. Can the Royals get this series back to Kansas City? And we cannot. So it is all over for the Royals a year after winning the World Championship in 2027. The Royals are out in the American League Division Series 3-1 here in 2028. 3-1 loss, so pretty competitive game. Frelich, you can see, went 0 for 4. Only 6 hits for the Royals, scattered around. Nikki Lopez drove in Kyle Lewis for the 1 run that we did score. Rogers didn't pitch very long, gave up 2 earned runs over 4 1/3 innings. R.J. Davovich also gave up a run, and then Zach Jacobs with 2 1/3 clean innings towards the end. Cody Poteet was really good. 5 hits, 1 walk, 1 earned run over 6 2/3. And then he turned it over to Ginn and Crochet, who combined to allow just 1 hit and 1 walk over the last 2 1/3 innings. So the season is over for the Kansas City Royals. We will not be defending our World Series championship successfully, but we did make it to the playoffs for a 4th consecutive season. And once again, we're going to have a lot of big decisions to make in the coming off season. But before we get to that, we're going to play through the rest of the playoffs and also kind of do a recap of the key players for the Kansas City Royals and how they performed this year. So recapping the Royals' now completed season, as we talked about, best record in baseball, 103 and 59. We were actually 4 games better than expectations, which is kind of a rare twist for us. We've generally underperformed our Pythagorean expectations most of the seasons that we've been leading this team. Pretty solid team. Great start in April and May and June even. We were kind of close to record pace just in terms of our record. Still good July, dropped to 500 in August, and then played better baseball in September. But after having a real big lead on the White Sox midway through the season, they did close the gap on us. And obviously, by the end of the season, and certainly in the playoffs, you could definitely make the argument that they were a better team than us. And that certainly showed in the playoff series. Offense from the Royals was generally good. You can see third, fourth, fifth, second in most categories. First in the league in batting average, first in the league in strikeouts, first in the league in steals. Don't walk a lot. That's something that we might want to work on next year, but it all added up to fourth in the AL in runs scored. And then our pitching, also very good. As we talked about, second in the AL in runs allowed, one run worse than the White Sox, but still an excellent pitching staff that ranks in the top, handful of just about all of the pitching categories, although we were 8th in BABIP and 14th in walks, first in strikeouts, 7th in defensive efficiency, so kind of middling defense, second in zone rating. But it was a good, solid, productive regular season for the Royals this year, without a doubt. Taking a look at some of the key offensive players on our team, Bobby Witt with a 7.3 WAR, easily the best WAR on the team, led the American League with 185 hits, led the American League with 34 stolen bases, batted .308 with 24 homers, 95 runs scored, 91 driven in, good for a 133 OPS plus. Just an excellent season for the 28-year-old third baseman who is still going to be with us for another couple of years. Shi-Tong Kin, free agent we signed this past offseason from Taiwan, just turned 23 years old during the season. I haven't looked too closely at what other people are done, but it's pretty hard to imagine that he's not going to be the AL Rookie of the Year. Hit 297, 25 home runs, 44 doubles, 90 runs scored, 92 driven in, 144 OPS plus, and a 4.6 WAR. Just a really nice offensive profile here, decent base runner, and very versatile defensively, able to play any position in the infield, although, most effective as a first baseman or a second baseman, to be realistic. Third on the team in WAR was the young second baseman, Ricardo Cabrera, took over in the spot this year. The 23-year-old had a solid year, 275 batting average, 103 OPS plus, so a bit above average in terms of his offensive abilities. He is a respectable defensive second baseman, got some speed, although wasn't as effective on the base paths as we would have hoped. He did steal 13 bases, but was caught 7 times. Hopefully he can be a little more productive next year on the base paths. But, making the major league minimum, very productive season from him. And then Sal Frelich, we obviously talked about him earlier in the episode. Signed him last offseason to an extension. Love him as a player. His first year with us, he tied with Bobby Witt Jr. for the league lead in steals. Last year won a batting title. And that .314 average that he had put up this year in 75 games, if he had batted enough to qualify for the title, he would have won another batting title this year and also stole 21 bases. Only concern with him is that he's fragile physically, but he is still going to be a very important member of this team going forward. Speaking of important members of the team going forward, Junior Marin, the young outfielder, really nice rookie season, 30 home runs, which led the team, 92 runs batted in, which tied for the team lead, hit 277 and put up a 126 OPS plus. the 24-year-old will be back next year and hopefully even more productive. MJ Melendez, our catcher, a bit of a down year offensively. He did hit 20 homers, but batted just .229, so his OPS plus was league average, WRC plus a little below average. He's a good defensive catcher, captain personality, great presence in the clubhouse. Hopefully he can be a little more productive with the bat next year because similar to Sal Frelich, he is a player that we assigned to an extension last offseason. So we're going to want to have him be productive for the next few seasons. Stephen Paolini, another corner outfielder, batted just .226 this year, 12 homers, 64 runs batted in, 88 OPS plus, which was the worst he's ever done for us. Only made a little over $1 million this year and expected to be making about $1.5 million next year. Profiles as a average-ish major league hitter, although he hasn't been quite that for us. He still probably has a spot with us for next year, but he is a player at some point we're going to need to figure out whether we want to make a long-term commitment to him or move on. Nikki Lopez, our shortstop, we exercised the option on him last offseason, so he is a free agent after this year. Very good defensive shortstop, and he had a bit of an offensive resurgence this past year, hitting .273, putting up a 95 OPS plus for us. He's still a fan favorite and still a pretty good defensive shortstop. We're going to have to decide whether we want to bring him back. He has been looking for extension, looking for 3 years at $8 million per year. It's something to think about, but he is going to be turning 34 before next season starts, and he's fragile. At some point, it's going to be time to move on, but we don't have a perfect shortstop to take over for him in the organization. Honestly, if he left, Witt Jr. would probably slide over to short. He's great in terms of not making errors, turning double plays in his arm, but his range of 60 is acceptable for a shortstop, but we'd obviously like it to be a little bit better than that. But he would be the logical candidate if we do let go of Nikki Lopez to play short next year, assuming that we can't find someone else in free agency. Peyton Williams, a year after hitting 49 homers, dipped to just 29 this year, although he did tie for the team lead with the youngsters, Kin and Marin, with 92 runs batted in. Batted just .237, though, so 110 OPS plus. Not quite as productive offensively as the year before. Put up a 1.1 WAR, which was exactly what we got from Zach DeCenzo. Similar batting profile to Peyton Williams, hit .239 with 15 homers and 251 at-bats. He is also at the point where he's going to start making a bit more money, $2.4 million arbitration expectation for next season. If he's not in the starting lineup, we're going to have to figure out what we want to do with him. Kyle Lewis, we brought over, had been our longtime center fielder, traded for him from Kansas City. He did bat .261 with us, over 88 at-bats. Splitting center field time with Brandon Marsh, who we also traded for from Cincinnati. Marsh hit just .229 for us, so we tried to piece things together with Frelich and Lewis and Brandon Marsh, and also the youngster Will Taylor, who batted .242 in 186 major league at-bats. But if Dominguez is healthy, he is likely to get the first shot at being center field next season for us. Other player, just one last player to mention, Jose Barrero, going to be a free agent after this year. Average-ish bat, can play a few positions acceptable defensively, but batted just .228 for us this year. Unlikely that he will be back next year as our utility infielder, which probably encourages the fact that DeCenzo likely will be around on the team if we do decide to move on from Mr. Barrero as one of our utility infielders. Turning to the Royals' vaunted pitching staff, as we talked about, Spencer Bauer with an 8-9 record, unlikely to repeat as the AL Cy Young Award winner, but 220 strikeouts, more than his Cy Young season, 3.14 ERA, exactly where he was, 133 to 131 ERA plus, 79 FIP minus to 85 FIP minus, and 4.3 WAR to a 3.6 WAR. So only a little worse than he was last season. Obviously, a very disappointing performance in his one playoff game this year, but hopefully he will be back and productive again next year. Zach Willman, we talked about him before his playoff game, 7-4 this year with a 3.68 ERA for us, his first full season with the Royals. Caleb Lagerwell, 11-7, 3.75 ERA, another good solid starting pitcher for us. And then Zach Jacobs, who may have a bigger role next year. Pitched 52 games for us this year. 14 of them were starts. He went 14-4 with a 3.85 ERA over 133 and a third innings. Good for a 107 ERA plus and an 87 FIP minus. The 27-year-old definitely could be in line for a bigger role with us next year. Ricky Vernasco, another guy who kind of split time between starting and relieving. You'll see we got a lot of players that fit that profile. Started 15 games, pitched in 48 total, 10-4 record with 132 strikeouts and 110 and a third innings, 2.85 ERA. So a 144 ERA plus, 85 FIP minus. Really nice year from the soon-to-be 30-year-old Vernasco. So we still have, a lot of big-time starters, and that includes Trevor Rogers. But given what we have with Jacobs and Vernasco, one of the big decisions this coming off season is going to be what to do with Trevor Rogers and his $18 million salary for next year. Got him signed next year at 18, and then we do have a team option for a final season with him at 18 million. You can see he started 14 out of 48 games, 109 strikeouts in those 93 and a third innings pitched, 2.99 ERA. Great work ethic, high loyalty, good guy in the clubhouse. But given that we've got Bauer, Williman, and Lagerwell topping the rotation and potential for Zach Jacobs and Ricky Vernasco to start games, do we need to be spending $18 million on Trevor Rogers? Big question for the team for the offseason. RJ Davovich, really a excellent middle reliever, 3 straight all-star appearances, as you can see, led the American League with 77 games pitched this year, 129 strikeouts in 100 innings, 3.60 ERA, and a 70 FIP minus. He remains an excellent arm out of our bullpen. Will Klein, another excellent reliever for us, 4 wins and 9 losses. But 126 strikeouts over 91 and 2/3 innings pitched in a 2.95 ERA, 78 FIP minus. Excellent season from Klein. Tyler Bosma is another guy who can start for us. You'll see he started 18 of his 43 games, 3.45 ERA over 122 and a third innings pitched with 148 strikeouts. So once again, you look at all of these guys who can start for us, and we're not even talking about Mackenzie Gore, who pitched just 37 and 2/3 innings before he was out for the year. But there definitely is an argument to be made to see what we can get for Trevor Rogers and see what some of these more economical guys who can start for us can do next year. Will Goebel is actually another guy who can start for us, although he started just 1 game this past season, but excellent campaign for Goebel. 18 wins, second in the American League, 18-4 record with 1 save, 126 strikeouts in those 128 and a third innings, 3.72 ERA and an 83 FIP minus. So just another really strong arm for us out of the bullpen. Already talked about Mackenzie Gore. Kind of an off year for our closer, Austin Roberts. Did lead the AL with 43 saves. Did strike out 84 batters in 68 and 2/3 innings, but his ERA went up to 3.67, which is the worst that it's ever been. 112 ERA plus and 92 FIP minus are the weakest figures that he's ever put up in his major league career. And he made $8.7 million this past year, in line for potentially $12.5 next year. So similar to Trevor Rogers, we're going to have a big decision to make as to whether we want to pay the $30 30-year-old Roberts that much money to be our closer next year, or whether we should think about potentially moving on from him now that he's starting to make the big bucks. Last few guys to mention on the pitching staff, Scott Kobos, lefty specialist, just didn't get a lot of action this year. Still very effective, pitched in 47 games, 3-0 with a save, but pitched just 22 and a third innings, 2.42 ERA, 170 ERA plus, 95 FIP minus. So he was effective, but just not utilized much at all, unfortunately. Dylan Coleman, who ended up out with shoulder inflammation after kind of not being on the major league roster very frequently for a couple seasons back, and was kind of a full-time pitcher for us this year at the major league level till he got hurt. 4.62 ERA over 48 and 2/3 innings. And then besides that, Randy Rodriguez came up at the end of the year. We mentioned we pulled him off of the playoff roster at the end. And then Will Bryan and Wyatt Wendell are also players who were up briefly, not particularly effective. And it looks like backup catcher Jonah Heim did pitch one game for us, 2/3 of an inning in relief in mop-up duty at some point during the season. So still really like our pitching staff. As I mentioned, I think we've got a ton of potential starters. The big questions are what we want to do with Trevor Rogers and his $18 million contract, what we want to do with Austin Roberts and the big arbitration number he is likely headed for, and then thinking about our day-to-day players. Big decision is what's going to happen at shortstop. Do we try to bring back Nikki Lopez, or do we let him go? And if we do let him go, do we turn the position over to Bobby Witt Jr.? Do we try to make a trade, try to find another free agent, or is there some other way that we can magically find a shortstop to play for us? Other than that, backup catcher will be something we need to figure out next offseason. Reese McGuire is a free agent. Don't know if he's going to be back. He'll be 34 years old by the beginning of next season, so it might be time to move on from him. Talked about the fact we're likely moving on from Barrero. And then, again, Kyle Lewis and Brandon Marsh, both of who we traded for, are going to be gone. They're both free agents. I think it's unlikely we bring either back, so that would leave us with Frelich, Marin, Paolini, and then potentially Mr. Jason Dominguez as our outfielders next year. So we may have a move to make to find another outfielder, but we'll do some scouting on Dominguez after he missed the entire season. You can see we've got low accuracy on him now. See exactly what we think his batting profile looks like, and what his defensive profile looks like. Would think that would probably be pretty similar, but if he's taken a step back in terms of his offensive capabilities, then we may have even more work to do around that center field position than we anticipate. Taking a quick look at some of the financials, not going to have the massive profit that we had last year. We did get a few playoff games in, but playoff revenue of $17 million last season obviously propelled us to a very profitable season. Just going to be $4.6 million this year with the 4 games played in the division series. So it means we're actually going to lose a little money this year. We'll see what ownership thinks of the season shortly. Goal was to upgrade first base, which I think we've definitely done with Shi-Tong Kin. And then they want us to win another championship, which we obviously failed at this year. But you can see we're 7 seasons into this sim, and we have 6 consecutive winning records now, coming off of the best season we've ever had. And we have made the playoffs in the last 4 of those seasons with the 6 winning records, obviously including that championship last year. So feel like we've done a good job. We have a legendary reputation at this point. Again, in those 7 years, we'll get our 4th playoff appearance officially marked off when the calendar clicks to the off season. So it has been a pretty good run for us. but I believe we are in the final year of our contract right now. So we will find out in the coming weeks after we sim through the playoffs whether Kansas City wants us back, which I assume they will, and whether we'll potentially get a raise from the $900,000 we were making this past year. Now that we have a World Series on our resume, hopefully they'll push us up into seven figures with a salary over $1 million a year next year. And looking at the league championship series, as we know, the White Sox, one of the best teams in baseball, going to be going up against the Red Sox, who are the only team with a bye that's still alive. Is the Dodgers took out their division rival Padres 3-0 in the division series, and the Mets took out the Cardinals 3-0. So the fact that we actually won a game with home field advantage doesn't look that bad compared to what happened with the Mets and the Cardinals in the playoffs. So Dodgers, Mets, Red Sox, and White Sox, your final four in 2028. And your 2028 World Series is going to be the Boston Red Sox and the Dodgers. So two classic franchises in Boston and LA going up against each other in the World Series. You can see the Red Sox swept the White Sox out in the LCS. You may remember that we beat the Red Sox in the ALCS last season. Fell behind 3-2 and then won those final two games. So the Red Sox make amends for that to get back to the World Series, and the Dodgers take care of the Mets in a 7-game series, 4-3. So looking at the expanded standings, the Red Sox were 91-71 AL East champions. That plus 152 run differential was the third best in the American League, behind only the White Sox and our Royals. And then looking at the Dodgers, they did not win the division. They finished one game behind San Diego, but their 146 positive run differential was actually the best in the entire National League and the fourth best in baseball, behind only the Red Sox, Royals, and White Sox. So shaping up to be a good World Series here between the Red Sox and the Dodgers. And it looks like it ended up being a pretty easy World Series for the Dodgers, 4-1 series victory, although 3 of those wins were one-run games. They won the first game 7-6, then an easy 7-0 victory, lost 3-2, and then won 4-3 and 6-5. So a very exciting series. Mookie Betts is your World Series MVP here on Halloween 2028. And before we finish up, we'll take a look at our evaluation. Owner Isaiah Moore, disappointed that we didn't win it all. Happy that we found Shi-Tong Kin to play first base. Wants us to still win a championship by 2032. Very happy with our performance. Wants us to win the championship next year, make a lot of money, build a top 6 minor league system, and build a dynasty in the next 6 seasons. So definitely ambitious goals for a small market team here in Kansas City. New budget up to $210 million. So I've talked in previous episodes about the fact that the financial situation has been really good for us through this playthrough. We've managed the budget pretty well. We've performed well on the field, and you can see that the budget has pretty consistently been going up $8 to $10 million every year, and we're now going to move up another $8 million from $202 million this past season to $210 million next year. So that's already opened up a little more money for us for extensions. We're going to have some big decisions to make this off season, but a little bit of extra money in our pockets and in the budget is going to hopefully help make those decisions a little easier to make as we try to make another run in the playoffs. And our contract has been extended another 3 years at $1.2 million a year. So we are making more and more money as we're getting more successful. Team trainer Ken Crenshaw is gone. We knew that was going to happen. We haven't found a great team trainer for the last couple seasons, so we've kind of signed the best guy available to 1-year contracts. We'll take another look this offseason and see if we can find somebody even better. So we will have a lot to do in our next episode when we start digging in earnest to the big decisions we have to make in the upcoming off season. Until then, it was a successful regular season for the Royals. Obviously, not successful to be knocked out in the first round of the playoffs, 3-1, but those things will happen. Until our next episode, when we start preparing for the 2029 season, thank you so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.